And we welcome you back to Austin, Texas, where the score 2-0, Canada leading it over the U.S. women's national team. This a decisive game 3. These two teams tied at 1 game apiece. The Americans won game 1 on Saturday 9-6. And yesterday the Canadians prevailed 3-2. Trent Kling with Mark Raup and Dylan providing the pictures via video. So Mark, your thoughts as we head into the second period?
Like we talked about on our way out of the first period, I think that the next goal here really is going to decide the pace of the rest of this game. If the USA can make it 2-1, they've got a pretty good shot. But 3-0, the way that things are going right now, would feel like a pretty far distance to go to win the game.
And I think for those viewers who endured the internet issues early on, I think we've gotten those addressed. So we hope to bring you the rest of the game unencumbered by internet issues here. Lindquist turns for the Americans. A quick one-time attempt by Kirgetta, and she whiffed on the opportunity. The Canadians get a shot through Lobley going back the other way. And now we go end-to-end. The Americans looking to strike next. Angerstig pushes it forward, but it's stolen away by Niskanen. The Canadians will regroup. Line changes for both teams. And, Mark, we saw a few players getting warmed up during halftime. Martha Burkett and Kim Campbell spent a little extra time getting warmed up here between periods. And I'd imagine we're going to see a little bit of them. But for right now, the second line remains as constructed in the first period with Catherine Lovett and Caitlin Bebout up front. This ball poked away by Tanskanen to the near wing. That is Sophia Holm kicking it back to Borghese.
Yeah, to your point on the second line, I feel like in the first 2 games, the changes to the second line started happening usually around the second period. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we start seeing a couple of fresh sets of legs subbing in and out on that second line playing forward.
Also able to deflect that pass away. Lovett sends Bebout forward. She's in a foot race with Borghese. It won't matter as Ida Hudson, the keeper, gets there first. And to Mark's point earlier in the game, you mentioned Hudson kind of sitting in a crouch. Aggressive helps on balls like that where you can get out a little bit more quickly and nullify that foot race. So the goals in the contest, first of the game was from Niskanen on a nice feed from Blomqvist. Niskanen with it right now, kicks it over to Adam. Adam, one-on-one against Angerstig. Adam into the near corner, here is Lobley. Back to Adam, looks in front for Niskanen, and a great defensive play by Marie Hagstrom. Blomqvist keeps it in, and they will call it a high stick.
Yeah, dangerous look there. Luckily, we got a defensive stick on that ball to pop it up. But again, that was another look in front of the net where somebody was pretty much unmarked.
Tanskanen plays it in, and now we get Burkett on the second line, taking the place of Bebout. Burkett, an energy-type player. Tanskanen wins advantage. Tanskanen into the offensive end. Tanskanen the shot, and a great hand save from Hudson. This ball in front. Lovett scores! Catherine Lovett!
Boy, 2 great saves by Ida Hudson there in full-on scramble mode, and the U.S. finally manages to sneak one by her on the third chance.
The player that was called the Americans' fair floorball exemplar, Catherine Lovett, there on the doorstep. And what did we say about her the last 2 nights, Mark? We said she was a pest, and I think that was very, very clear on that particular play in the crease, not giving up on that ball. And for the Americans, it's not the prettiest of goals, but it's their first goal of the game, and they will very much take it.
You know what they say, they all count the same, Trent.
Exactly.
So you'll take it however you can get it when you need a goal.
Years from now, it'll be a rocket shot from the point, and this shot just goes wide. Lindquist underneath. KKG looking for Hagstrom. Canadians take it, try to haul it out. The Canadians' first line comes out. And they give that goal to Lovett on the initial attempt from Tanskanen. That is Tanskanen's second assist of this tournament. She's got 1 goal, 2 assists here. Time of the goal, 22-42. And now a lot more noise from the Americans bench. Coming in is Kirkgeta. Looking to the far wing. Here's Angerstig. Plays it back. Angerstig goes over the boards. Hagstrom, though, able to keep possession for the Americans. Hagstrom in front, they score! Lindquist, her first! And just like that, it's a new floorball match, 2-2.
It looks like the United States team has decided to focus a little more focus a little more in the front of the net, trying to get the ball behind the net, around the net, and have somebody really right on the doorstep. And it's paid dividends twice now in just a couple of minutes. That may be the recipe that gets them over the top for this game.
And we had talked about in the pregame how Susie Lindquist had been somewhat snake-bitten. She's had a few opportunities over the last couple of games, but has not been able to manage a goal. That has changed in the second period of this one, and it's 2-2.
When you're playing in front of the net like that, you can't ask for a better pass. You put one right on the blade of the stick, and all you've got to do is find the hole around the goalie and pop it home.
The time of the goal, 23-53. That shot just wide.
Yeah, dangerous deflection there.
Bebout comes up with the loose ball. Bebout working one-on-one is bodied off by Niskanen, but that was done illegally, and you could hear the official from the near side. Now the official closest was blocked out by a few players, but the front side official, Alberto Coduto, saw the stick check and gave the free hit back to the U.S.
Yes, he was all over that one.
Angerstig's shot rises out of play. 5 minutes into the second period, and this game has changed completely. The United States offense, which had been stifled for the most part, it had trouble hitting the net with shots on the opportunities they did get, has come to life, at least for this period of time.
Well, we've talked a whole bunch of times about how it felt like the floor was tilted towards the U.S. net, and the Canadians were just in the zone for just long periods of time. It sort of feels like the momentum swing has really happened here, and now the U.S. team really is starting to dominate possession time in the last 5-6 minutes.
KKG off the boards, puts it in deep for Hagstrom. Hagstrom in the corner, looked on by 2 Canadians, and advantage was given at first. Hagstrom wanted to put that ball in play off of the free hit, but couldn't get it to settle down. Now does play it into Lindquist.
Looked like the referee wanted to inspect and make sure that ball didn't have any damage to it.
Gerber, Hagstrom in front, looking for the tip from KKG. That goes wide. Jeffries out of the way for Canada. And here comes Pomeroy storming in. Pomeroy's backhand pass, and I believe that was snuffed out by McBean on Holmes' a tip attempt inside. Now this shot from Jeffries, back door, it comes to Pomeroy, and I think Gerber got a stick in there, forced it wide. Pomeroy in front, that shot blocked down by Angerstig. Canada coming right back, and a Canadian player, that's Borghese, went into the stands, and I think she might have hit that metal post that's over there on the stands. She was going in shoulder to shoulder with KKG, and there was nothing in that, really. They were just running out, and KKG immediately went to check on her, but I think she ran into that metal bar that's over there.
I think initially she got lucky and missed the metal bar, but when she landed, her back hit one of the seat fronts, and she was sort of bent in an awkward position when she hit it, too, so her lower back took the brunt of that. I hesitate to call it a collision because it was with an inanimate object, but
so it'll be a face-off here. Won by the Canadians. Quick shot from Lobley. Backdoor it comes, and oh boy, Jessica Crosswaite had an opportunity at her first goal of this series and put it just high and wide, but comes away from it nodding here.
Alto got her stick on that at the very last second, or that might have just been an easy tap-in on the back post.
This shot well wide of the cage from Lobley. Racing over there is Niskanen. Back it comes to Jess Crosswaite.
Canada's responding really well to the U.S. pressure and the U.S. surge we saw earlier in this period. Now they're really doing a good job of possessing the ball and getting chances to score.
Kim Campbell out there for her first shift of the game. She's out there with Burkett on the second line. Kohler's still the center. It's centered up, or attempted to, at least by just cross-weight. And it's deflected away by Alto. Comes back to the point, and a shot is well wide from Blomqvist. And she hops up and down, thinking about a missed opportunity. First line back out for the Americans now. Gerber plays into Angerstig. And I do want to give Esther Angerstig credit on the goal we saw from Lindquist, because it was Angerstig taking that contact to make the play to Hagstrom that set that up initially. And now she sets up Hagstrom for a one-timer. That is blocked in front. Gerber stands her ground, though, pinching defensively. And now the Americans have a 2-on-1 on the boards. Hagstrom wins it away. KKG fires a shot, and that is blocked down by Niskanen, who continues to have a game. And Niskanen will race down the loose ball, set the table for Nicole Crosswaite, and now Canada will get an opportunity to change on the ball.
That was a pretty high skill level block there. She read that play really well and got down low to take the complete shooting lane away. KKG definitely had a pretty good lane when she reared back, but just took it all away from her there.
As tall as Niskanen is, she gets down in an awful hurry to block shots. And we've seen that multiple times thus far this game. Holm in the near corner. Holm, and a penalty coming up against Gerber. Delayed call. I don't think the tender for the Canadians, Ida Hudson, has noticed.
There she goes.
Now she does. She'll go to the bench for an extra attacker. Lindquist deflects the ball. They'll give possession. And now Gerber will get the 2-minute penalty.
For repeated offenses.
Yes, she came down on the stick one time, the official called advantage, and when you come down multiple times on the stick in the same play, it can be a repeated offense call, or they can just call it a 2-minute at that point.
Especially when you're behind a player like that. The first stick check, yeah, a little easy whistle, but the second one, no real excuse for that. You just got to lay off a little bit and let the advantage clean. She wasn't in a dangerous space.
This is Canada's first power play in the 3-game series. Jenny Darlow comes out, along with Tina Bazaka and Joe Owens, and Caitlin Bebout gets sent over the edge of the boards by Blomqvist. Blomqvist is more upset about it than Bebout was. Bebout, a former lacrosse player, she's used to that kind of contact. Darlow puts it towards the cage, it's blocked down, and now the Americans will come back defensively. So 4 Austin-based penalty killers here getting an opportunity. Blomqvist wide, across the crease, and a goal! Lobley fires it home on a splendid pass from Sophie Holm, and it's 3-2.
What great ball movement on that power play. They got everybody moving. Everyone went right, everyone went left, everyone went right, and then they passed it across to the player down low who just stepped up, and nothing Kate McBean can do about that. Just a well-placed shot from a player who had just popped wide open.
And you talk about the placement of the shot from Lobley. She took a second before she swept it on net, realizing that she had some time. McBean was getting over, but because Lobley had a second to pick her spot, so to speak, able to put it right underneath McBean's arm, and it is now 3-2 Canada, the first power play goal we've had of this series. Granted, attempts have been limited, but
on a play like that, especially when you're on the penalty kill, good ball movement back and forth can really wear you down as a goaltender because you're going post to post to post to post. If you can get a goalie moving a whole bunch of times like that, you're going to usually have a good chance if you can get an open shot.
And the Canadians have to now backtrack. The Americans trying to get right back on top of things, and a nice save off of the Hagstrom shot by Ida Hudson. Now Canada trying to rush the other way against this American first line. Hagstrom, a defensive play to get her stick in the passing lane. Hagstrom wisely waits for reinforcements, plays to Lindquist, Angerstig back to Gerber, and on it comes to Hagstrom. Hagstrom bodies in front, thinks about the shot, couldn't get it through. A leg of a Canadian player on the near side. That was Niskanen, another block. That ball found its way into the slot, but Canada controlling. Here comes Lobley. Forces it into the far corner. Adam coming in. Evie Adam off the boards. Back it comes to Lobley. It's turned over. KKG in on the rush. She's 1-on-2 on this side. So again, she waits. She has help coming off the bench from Elsa Tanskanen, but instead decides to go to Hagstrom. Hagstrom gets space inside. Hagstrom curls, fires, and scores! The captain for the United States knots things back at 3. We have ourselves one heck of a game here.
What great patience and vision by Marie Hagstrom to slide her way through several players and then finally pop open and shoot back against the grain. That was beautiful.
And again, just like we talked about with the Lobley goal, it comes down to patience. Hagstrom could have easily passed it away, but realized she had some space in the high slot. Didn't take the first shot opportunity because she saw Canadians getting down on a knee. Waited until she got traffic in front, but not blocking traffic and scoring.
And Trent, you as a goalie can attest to the fact that the middle of the floor, especially when you're going from one side to the other, is where you're most vulnerable when you're down in the butterfly waiting for the ball.
And especially as you're trying to track across, you never know when that shot is coming. And Hagstrom able to take advantage.
And if you've got a good enough shot to shoot against the grain, you've got a good chance at it, because generally the goalie's trying to stay even with you as you move across the floor.
That goal goes down unassisted. Canada gets another opportunity in and around the crease. And another shot fired wide. That was off the stick of Van Thielen. So back and forth we go in this contest. It was 2-0 Canada to start the period. The Americans tied it up 2-2. Canada got a power play goal, and then it was answered by the United States. Burkett goes racing down, chasing down Sarah Alfheim, and it's the Americans' ball. Alfheim arguing her case, but now the Americans will get a chance to change.
No chance for either ref on that one. I'm not sure who it went off of, but neither one of them could have told if that went off a stick at the very end. There was a glut of bodies in front of the net, and the backside referee was pretty far back, and the near side referee was behind about 4 people.
The time of that goal, 29:46 is the announced time. And Mark, one thing I'll mention, I'm impressed at the crowd. You know, for those watching in Europe, it is about 11 a.m. here in Austin. It's a morning game on a Monday, on a work day, and still you have a number of people who have come out here to make noise for their respective club, whether it be the United States or Canada. It's a good sign that women's floorball is alive and well in the United States and also in Canada.
Ooh, dangerous.
Lobley.
Dangerous there.
I got it tied up in Angerstig's feet. Lobley was pestering her. And now this ball is forward to Kirk-Gedda. Bodied off of the ball. That was a great play by Blomqvist initially, and then Kirk-Gedda tried to retaliate. And notice we have a goaltending switch now for the Americans, as Ella Yarda is back in for the U.S. So maybe their plan was to go 50-50 the entire way.
Yeah, it seems like, at least at a guess, we're about halfway through the second period. If you were going to change goalies, that's generally when you would do it if it was a pre-planned thing.
So Ella Yarda back in this series. The 17-year-old, she won't turn 18 until July of this year. Showed a lot of composure in yesterday's game, keeping the United States in it when they were on the back foot. Now Bebout and Campbell are forwards on this line, centered by Kohler, the second line. The shot comes in, and a great rebound control by Yarda. She races out and gives instead to Tanskanen.
That's always how it goes. You sub in, and then you immediately get tested.
Sometimes you like that as a keeper. You like being tested if the shot's towards your chest, at least. And in that case, Yarda was square to the shot, took it in the chest, grabbed the rebound, got a chance to feel the ball a little bit.
Maybe clear out any jitters she might be feeling.
Absolutely. Hagstrom back to Gerber. It looks like the Canadians, at least for their part, will stay with Hudson. 7:30 remaining in the second period. KKG working in the corner, and she'll earn a free hit. They'll say that Riley Borghese got her knee in there. Set play for the U.S. Hagstrom banks it off the boards. Back to Gerber. Gerber looks about the shot, instead gives back to Hagstrom, who scores. Marie Hagstrom gives the United States their first lead of the night.
And just like we talked about earlier on Hagstrom's first goal, the pass to the middle pulled Ida Hudson to the middle of the floor, and the return pass happened fast enough that she was behind the 8-ball and couldn't get to the post fast enough to stop the shot.
And let's give Tiff Gerber some credit as well, because Gerber drew the defense back towards the center. She shot several times in this series from that spot on the floor. Everyone sold out to the shot. That enabled her to go back against the grain to Hagstrom. Ida Hudson was ready for the point shot, not ready for the pass back. And as a result, Hagstrom had some open net on the near side to fire it home. 7:10 remaining in the second period, and it's 4-3. The U.S. leads for the first time today. The time of the goal, 32-36. Love it with the steal. Alto through center. Here's Burkett. Burkett gives chase against Blomqvist. Blomqvist, though, she's so good on the ball, very rarely gives any quarter to the American forecheckers, and spins it up for Canada. Nicole Crossway looks, thinks about the diagonal. An errant goal horn plays, and this will be knocked down by a high stick. And the goal horn plays again. You missed it earlier, Mark, but the fire alarm was going off multiple times before the contest.
So you're saying it's been a noisy one
so far? Yes, it's been a noisy one here.
Oh.
A set play for Canada in a difficult position. It's left off, shot from Pomeroy, and that skirts wide of the net. That was an excellent set play because everyone went with Van Thielen, the shooter, not expecting Pomeroy to come back against the grain with it.
She definitely had a shooting lane there. She just roofed it way too high.
There's a play well drawn up by Nico Van Thielen, who is Elise Van Thielen's father.
We haven't seen a whole lot of set plays here off of free hits. It's mostly just been one pass and a shot.
Angerstig looked inside for KKG. It's turned over. Canada 2-on-1 if they hurry. That ball bounces around. Yarda very aggressive, then very aggressive to get it away to Lindquist. Lindquist wisely takes her time. Now re-wheels, tries to get it to KKG. It's turned over. Canada another rush if they hurry, but KKG a great job to get back defensively against Van Thielen.
Good active stick there.
Van Thielen calmly plays it back to Borghese. On it comes near side to Holm. Holm looks inside. That pass just a little bit behind the stick of Van Thielen, but Jeffries to collect. 4-3 to United States, leading for the first time this game after falling down early. This ball jumped on by Gerber. Here's Hagstrom, tips it forward to Lindquist. Back it comes to Gerber. They'll get a change on the fly, will the United States of America. Bebout and Campbell, the wing pairs on this second line. Kohler comes back to play it. Kohler began her floorball career as a defender, coming from field hockey, but has shifted up to center ever since their opportunity in Fredericton. Here is Campbell sweeping the ball away from Adam, and now she will bear down on Emily Blomqvist, who, as we mentioned earlier, so good on the ball, as is her defensive partner Nicole Crossway. Watched over by Bebout. Played to Adam. Adam waved at by Campbell, manages to get it to Niskanen. Return feed for Adam is intercepted just out of her reach. Bebout plays it back to Tanskanen. Tanskanen playing it forward to Alto. Alto turns, wheels with it, takes a little push in the back, advantage given. Alto plays it forward for Kohler. Kohler looking in the slot area. Bebout shot just off a foot and wide of the net.
Great job by Caitlin there to find a little soft spot and just wait for the ball.
Bebout forces the turnover. Kohler's shot is knocked aside by Hudson. That was a good little shot, but an even better little save by Hudson. And
yeah, that shot had a little twist on it, too.
Angerstig wanted to change on the ball, wanted to get it deep to Campbell. Campbell says she was pushed into the back, but I think she also stopped abruptly in front of the Canadian player. The official saying playing on, playing on. And now things will settle down a little bit after a very noisy last couple of minutes. First line back out for both teams. Van Thielen, diagonal pass, deflected by Lindquist. Comes to Pomeroy though, nonetheless. Lindquist trying to play it back to Angerstig. It's lost, but a strong play on her stick by Marie Hagstrom, who's had herself a second period.
Big play by Marie there. That was a dangerous spot for a ball to be loose in.
You know, for a player who is known as an offensive talent, she is so responsible defensively, so good with her stick, getting into passing and shooting lanes. Here is Hagstrom on the near boards. And I say all of this not in the least bit surprised because she's been doing it for a while now for the American national team. This is her 63rd game played with the American national team, and she's got 2 goals and an assist in this one so far. KKG in the corner uses that free arm. That's something she's been called for a lot this 3 games.
We've seen that whistle a bunch of times in all 3 games.
Yes, and David Rampoldi, who made that call, he told me a couple of nights ago, he said, you know, for us, we are going to call it when we're able to see it. Sometimes you can't see it, but that is something that we're emphasizing a little bit, is making sure the offensive player does not get that free hand mixed in there. It was turned over by the Americans as Niskanen went 1-on-2 in the middle. And that room in the middle that was there in the first period for Canada, not there so far. This pass between Gerber's legs, racing in is Lobley. The Canadians now offensively looking to set things up once again. Burkett working 1-on-1 in that far corner, and I think the end of her stick came up to the mouth on one of the Canadian players. It's Blomqvist going off.
She certainly reacted like she caught something around the mouth area. She looks like she's okay though.
And I don't think that was an illegal play necessarily by Burkett. It's just a height difference there. Jenny Darlow's out for the first time. Martha Burkett trying to haul that ball forward. And now here come the Americans. Or pardon me, the Canadians, but the Americans come back on the back check. It's Catherine Lovett, who got the first goal for the United States in this game and is really responsible for turning the tide. As I mentioned, Jenny Darlow out there for the second time this game defensively. She was in on the box play earlier. Darlow racing into the corner, is able to beat Nicole Crossweight there, and then earns the free hit as Crossweight got the extra hand in there. And the Canadians starting to ratchet up the physicality just slightly.
They are definitely playing pretty hard around the boards. We've seen a couple of pretty good pushes and shoves.
Hagstrom. 1:26 remaining in the period. Here's KKG. Spins. She's got an opportunity inside. Fights for it. Ida Hudson, a great job to control the rebound for a moment. It scoops loose. Here's Alto trying to put it in deep, but it's kicked away, and away comes Pomeroy and Holm on the break. Holm shot.
Oh, what a save.
A save by Yarda. And now it comes back to Lindquist, who shot is stopped by Hudson.
An answering save. My goodness.
Splendid goaltending play over the last little sequence. Yarda stopping a partial breakaway. Hudson equal to the task on hers.
And credit to the USA defense on the stop that Yarda made as well, because, man, that ball was loose in front, and they just sealed everybody off and then launched it down and found Susie Lindquist in a one-on-one on the other side of the floor.
Nicole Crossweight with it for Canada. First line still out there for the Americans. They'll probably play the last 40 seconds if I was a betting man. Lobley looking to the far wing. Adam couldn't connect on the one-time attempt. Nicole Crossweight through traffic, the diagonal ball to Lobley. Lobley sets up shop against Alto. Comes back to the point. Blomqvist looks none the worse for wear after taking something to the mouth. And that shot from Lobley, that was a tricky one. Yarda just got a hand on it. And now a free hit called to the Canadians. Gerber will reset defensively for the U.S. 18 seconds remaining here in the second period. The shot, oh, that's off the helmet of Yarda.
She just fought that one off, boy.
Lobley, a couple of great opportunities over the last little bit of playing time, and now we'll see if Lindquist just tries to eat it along the end boards. She will. She'll turn. The Canadians will forecheck, and a great ball out by Lindquist to make sure Canada does not get another opportunity. The Americans strike 4 times in the second period. They faced a 2-0 deficit heading into the second 20 minutes, and they leave the second 20 minutes ahead 4-3.
The U.S. team has to be really happy with what they saw in this period. They had everything that went wrong in the first period was going right in the second. If they continue to take advantage of the backside underneath the net and keep on working the middle of the floor and in front of the goalie, they'll keep having chances like that. But as we've seen, the Canadian team is really coming on strong, playing both physical and keeping the ball in the American zone. They're going to be looking for an equalizer early on, obviously, and the U.S. is probably going to have to weather a little bit of a storm when the third period starts.
So the goals in that period, we got started with Catherine Lovett, who got 2 whacks at a rebound off a shot from Elsa Tanskanen. Tanskanen picks up the assist. That made the score 2-1 Canada at the time. Suzanne Lindquist then scored on a feed from Marie Hagstrom in front. Lindquist right on the doorstep, able to poke it through the legs of Ida Hudson, made the score 2-2. Tiffany Gerber was then whistled for repeated offenses at the 28:05 mark, and just 20 seconds later, Canada capitalized. Nice cross pitch pass from Sophie Holm ended up on the stick of Sharon Lobley, who rifled it underneath the arm of Kate McBean. That made the score 3-2 at the 28:26 mark. The United States switched goaltenders. I think that was a designed switch, and Marie Hagstrom came out shortly thereafter, raced across the floor, and managed to score coming against the grain in the center of the floor to make it 3-3 at 29:36. And then exactly 3 minutes later, she scored once more, this time on a nifty across the grain pass from Tiff Gerber to set her up to make the score 4-3. There were no goals in the final 7 minutes of the period, and thus far they have the total shots for the United States at 13, total shots for Canada at 11 as we head into the third period. So Mark and I will be back after this break for the second intermission. We'll have full third period action coming up for you here on the IFF app. You're watching the Women's 2025 World Floorball Championship qualifications from Austin, Texas. And we welcome everyone back to Austin, Texas, where we are just about set to begin the third period of action, and we will go ahead and launch into the third period of action. And right away, a shot from Clara Kirkgeta, and it's blocked out in front. Elise Van Thielen will come away with it for the Canadians. We started this period a little bit late, or a little bit early, pardon me, and so jumping back to the air here, but it is 4-3, the United States the lead. This is their first lead of the contest. They trailed 1-0, then 2-0, then 2-1, tied it up at 2. Canada took a 3-2 lead on a power play, and then 2 unanswered goals by the American captain, Marie Hagstrom, has them on the front foot. Pomeroy looks inside. Van Thielen cannot control. It's stolen away by Hagstrom. Hagstrom forward to Lindquist. Sets it up for Kirkgeta, who shoots and scores.
Once again, really great ball possession to get in there. Susie Lindquist had the ball on her stick. She was being hounded. Did a good job of just keeping possession and then kicking it over to KKG for the blast.
And that's really like one of the first times in this game as a whole that the United States, this line for the U.S. has had a clean look in transition. A great pass over to the far side, and Kirkgeta has her first goal of this contest. The Americans, possession after the face-off. It's Martha Burkett and Catherine Lovett, the wings, on either side of Jen Kohler. It was Lovett who got the scoring started in this game. A couple of rebound opportunities in front, and since then the American offense has woken up, but here comes Jess Crosswaite after the steal. Across and scored! What a pass, what a play from Jess Crosswaite. And it's Sharon Lobley with her second.
United States defense was outnumbered in front of the net. They had 2 folks down there and only 1 defender, and that pass did not miss the wide open person on the far side.
That's 5-4. It's all we can do to just update the score on this broadcast.
And you know, once again, those 2-goal leads, never safe.
This is Borghese. On to Jeffries. It's Canada trailing by 2. Got a quick goal on a nice steal and score by set up by Jess Crosswaite. She had the steal, she had the pass across, and Sharon Lobley had the goal. It's the first goal that Ella Yarda has surrendered since entering the game. Ida Hudson still out there for Canada. Borghese wanted to go to Jeffrey. She had that avenue cut off by KKG. KKG forces a pass right to the stick of Hagstrom. Here's Lindquist. Oh, shoots and scores!
What a rifle shot that was. Pulled the goalie all the way to the post, then opened up a little bit and just pinged the top part of the net on the far side. Wow. And Trent, you know, just like I know, when you're in net and somebody's down low like that, there's not a whole lot you can do about covering that back corner. You've got a hand that you hope can maybe get to the ball, but a great shot is going to beat all but the very best goalies.
So Susie Lindquist came into this game pointless after the first 2 affairs. She's got 2 goals in this one and stakes the Americans back to a 2-goal lead.
And has really been a really sparkling point for the United States offense since the second period started all the way until now. Really a good spark plug. Playing in the middle, handling the ball.
Lindquist known more for her play around the net in those slam dunk goals, but that time showing that she can go bar down with the best Here's Jess Crossweight. She's trying to answer. She was the one who set up the last Canadian goal. 6-4 now our score. Crossweight along the end boards. Her pass out in front. Deflected away by Yarda. And now they'll say that Jess Crossweight got the ball back illegally. So it will be American possession. So the United States second line does its job, holds serve, and gets the Americans first line back out. Canada does not use this opportunity to change. So the Lobley, Niskanen, Jess Crossweight line stays out. In the far corner, Kirkgeta holds against Nicole Crossweight, who keeps her right in that corner.
Good
but
fight.
Now it's the Americans with no sense of urgency necessarily as they lead by 2. Again, the winner of this game, shot wide by Gerber. Winner of this game goes to Czechia later this year for the 2025 World Championships. The loser does not, and it's such a shame because I think both of these teams could acquit themselves well going to Czechia later this year.
You just think about how great all 3 of these matches have been. These teams are pretty well matched up, but on top of that, we've just seen some really good floor ball as well.
This ball turned over. Kirkgeta coming back for the Americans. It's on to Hagstrom. Backhand pass deflected away. And now the Canadians get an opportunity. A shot from Pomeroy, knocked down by the mask of Yarda. Into the corner. Alto able to recover the loose ball. Up to Lindquist. Lindquist has it turned over by Jeffries. And Jeffries now regroups for the Canadians. To the far side. It's Van Thielen. To the near corner now, and Pomeroy. Pomeroy holds. Jeffries trying to pull it back out in front. Poked away by Hagstrom. Canada regroups. Canada still along the end boards. Pomeroy so dangerous from here. Pomeroy spinning on the forehand. Looks for Jeffries. That ball deflected away again by the stick of Hagstrom. Now a pass into the middle. Knocked down again by Hagstrom. Lindquist takes. She's trying to get it to the end boards to Tanskanen so the U.S. can change, and finally does. Marie Hagstrom, an active stick on that possession. And with all the points she's accumulated in this game, it's her defense that's really stood out for the United States. This ball shoveled on net from Burkett from distance. No rebound there for the charging Lovett. Ida Hudson had and calmly pitches it away to Nicole Crossweight. Up the boards, here's Jess Crossweight. The ball off the foot of Lovett and out of bounds. They'll give it back to the Americans, though. It might have touched Crossweight again before it went out. Might have been one of those ping pong situations, Mark.
Yeah, that ball deflected around a little bit. It was pretty hard, even right in front of us, to tell who it went off of.
Gerber in front. Lindquist pushes a shot towards the net. First line remains out there for the Americans, and a rough turnover for the Canadians. Who's Lindquist, the beneficiary, sets up Kirkgeta, and a block shot from Nicole Crossweight keeps this a 2-goal Canadian deficit. A long lob pass. Here's Blomqvist in there, but Yarda was very aggressive in playing that. Earns the free hit for the Americans as she had her hand impacted by the stick of the on-rushing Canadian player.
Yeah, she definitely put herself out in a position where she had a pretty good chance to get whacked there, but looks like she's okay. She gave the ref a thumbs up.
And you know it is a goalie when you dive out for a ball like that, that's a possibility, but it's also a possibility that you can win a free hit. Jenny Darlow out there for the Americans. She's shifted in a few times defensively, manages to find Kim Campbell. Sets the table for Jen Kohler. Back it comes to Bebout. Back to Kohler. A long shot. That went wide, and that's a difficult.
That's a bad call right there. I don't want to talk too bad about the officials, but man, that was all the Canadian defenders' fault.
And Campbell had her arms in the air. I think that might be more of a little bit more of a reputation call, perhaps. I think Campbell has a reputation for playing physically, and so you understand if that's the call that's made when two players get tied up when they go into the corner.
And they both were hamming it up a little bit to try and get the call. So,
yes,
as a referee, that definitely is a tricky one because he's behind the play. He can't really see exactly whose arm is locked on who. He just sees two people complaining for a call.
Nice play by Lindquist to take the ball away from Borghese. Sets it up for Hagstrom. Hagstrom in, fires. That shot deflected wide. A great play coming back from her center position by Van Thielen.
Yeah, really good defensive play there.
And Van Thielen's not a long player like some of these Canadians are, but she still managed to reach around, get her stick in the shooting lane, and deflect that shot. Once again, the winner of this game goes to Czechia for the World Championships in 2025. So this is crunch time. The United States won 9-6 Saturday. They lost to Canada 3-2 yesterday. And this game certainly has a little bit more of a high-scoring flavor than yesterday's game did. Canada.
And for Canada here so far, there's still 13 minutes left in the period. No reason to panic yet. But that being said, I wouldn't be super surprised if we see Canada really start to try and ratchet up the pressure on the forecheck in the not-too-distant future.
A couple of blocks there by Catherine Lovett on point shots, and now a block underneath by Nora Alto. Burkett trying to force her way through Blomqvist. It's turned over, and now we're just going back and forth. Each team just managing a single touch before a turnover, and Yarda finally settles things down once again, aggressive with her distribution. Alto. Cross to Hagstrom. Hagstrom holds, sets it up for Kirk-Getta. She was double teamed. It comes back to Hagstrom, sets up Kirk-Getta, who tried to squeeze away the shot, and a great defensive stop by Blomqvist. Kept her from managing that shot. Now here's Gerber from the point, launches it. It's into the back of Niskanen. Kirk-Getta manages to get it free to Hagstrom, who scores! The hat trick for the American captain after a great play by Kirk-Getta to win the ball back and slide it to her.
She got fully can-opened by a defender. That was going to be a penalty shot if she hadn't have scored. The referee threw his arm up and immediately dropped it to signal the goal.
But if you are the Americans, you'll happily take the sure thing, the bird in the hand, so to speak, instead of the one in the bush.
I don't know if you just noticed, Trent, but it looked like one of our officials was talking to Kim Campbell and was pointing down into the corner from the call earlier. So maybe she got a little explanation as to what the call was we were talking about previously.
And that's good. You always like it when officials manage to educate the players. And, of course, some of the American players, and as well as the Canadian players, a little bit less experienced in terms of international officiating.
One of the best things you can do as an official is talk about things, especially after the play, when you've got a chance, everybody's had a chance to take a breath and calm down a little bit, and just explain what you saw. Because, yeah, nobody's perfect. No matter how good those refs are, none of them are perfect. They may make mistakes, but they'll tell you what they saw and what happened in their eyes.
Distant shot from Tanskanen, stopped by Hudson. Campbell was fighting for the rebound. She got tied up once again with Blomqvist. Those two have been going at one another for the last little while, and Campbell will come off on the change. First line back out for the Americans. A 3-goal lead. Again, Canada led 2-0 at one point in this game. But it's been all U.S. really, I think, for the most part, since the goal scored by Catherine Lovett.
I'd say that's a pretty fair assessment. USA is still being pretty aggressive with their forecheck as well.
Here's Darlow hounding behind the net. Pomeroy retains it, so a different D pair with this first line, and Darlow saves a goal.
Big block right there by Ginny Darlow.
An excellent play by Pomeroy to get it out in front to Van Thielen, and the math teacher got her shoe in the way. And another shot attempt by Van Thielen. It hits Tanskanen on the back door and goes wide of the net. A stick infraction is going to be called against Tanskanen, and now a quick change for that defensive pair for the United States. Darlow, a couple of good defensive plays on those feeds out in front by Pomeroy. And one thing is the Americans in that case, that particular defensive pairing, they were just cutting off those centering passes. Yeah. And so they were a little bit further back. They weren't playing right on Pomeroy in that case. That gave Pomeroy room to get those passes through. And like I said, Darlow rejected one pass and managed to kick down a shot on the other.
Yeah, we got a timeout Canada here, which is why there's no action on the floor.
Yeah, we should mention. And you know, the thing we saw the first game from Canada on Saturday, is after their timeout, they were more aggressive about pulling their goalkeeper. And you see the goalkeeper coming over, talking to Canada's, I believe that's their mental coach, Jennifer Ollis over there, as well as one of the other Canadian players who are out of uniform here. And you wonder if that's something that they're going to be talking about with Ida Hudson, is maybe Coach Nico Van Tielen is going to say, hey, we get aggressive here about pulling the goaltender when we have possession. They're down by 3, 10-10 left to play in the third period. Goal difference doesn't matter at this point. You just need to win the game if you're Canada.
Yeah, at this point, you've got nothing to lose. You pull your goaltender and you give up a goal. Whether you lose by 1 or by 50, it doesn't make a difference.
The United States came into this period leading 4-3. They have opened things up, outscoring Canada 3-1 in this frame, and it's due in very large part to their captain, Marie Hagstrom, who has been everywhere. She's got a hat trick in the game to go along with a couple of assists. She has played a part in 5 of the 7, U.S. goals as we get the latest scoring update here. Susie Lindquist has 2 goals. KKG Clara Kirkgeta has 1 goal, and Catherine Lovett got the scoring started for the United States. But it's really been the first line after, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday, the first line having trouble getting free for scoring opportunities in yesterday's 3-2 loss. It's the first line that's come out here and really ratcheted things up into a different gear.
It's really been impressive, and to talk about Marie Hagstrom specifically, she's been everywhere in this game. She's, like you said, 5 of 7 goals she's had an influence on, and on top of that, she's playing lockdown defense in front of the net. The last shift she was out, I noticed she had dropped down pretty deep and was playing just outside of the goalie box and just aggressively challenging everyone that was trying to cut across and taking passing lanes away.
You know, one of the storylines coming into this game, and I'm interested, this timeout seems to be lasting quite a while. There's something they're advising on over at the scorers table. One of the referees is looking at the, perhaps the game broadcast there.
I wonder if that last shot we saw that sort of was up at the top left of the U.S. net, maybe they're looking to see if that went in or not.
It would be tough to see from our angle, and I certainly wasn't sure there. But ultimately, there's some sort of review going on as we see the official Alberto Caduto looking at a laptop on the far side.
Well, I'll say I wasn't aware we had video review as an option.
This is one of the reasons why Dylan over here gets paid the big bucks, is so we make sure we have video footage there.
That solid gold camera. Pretty impressive.
But I was going to say, while this review takes place, one of the storylines coming into this tournament was the relative youth of Canada. Canada only has 1 player in her 30s. The United States, by my count, has 11 players that are at least 30 years old. And in some cases, maybe a decade or so past that. And you think about it, and the storyline coming into today, a quick turnaround. The game yesterday was played at 4 p.m. local time. This game, 10 a.m. local time. So 16 hours to turn around before you play another international competition. That's a rough turnaround. And so it was, could the youth of Canada maybe respond? Would they have fresher legs here? And what we have seen is the experience of the Americans seems to be working things out.
So we were video reviewing. One of our officials gave the rectangle hand signal of VAR and then said no goal. So that probably was what they were looking at.
Gotcha.
I had no idea they could do that.
So further to the point about the ages, you wonder if down the stretch this is going to play into the Americans' benefit, because you talked about Hagstrom playing so low. They have so many players here with international experience that you would think situational floorball now comes into play for the United States team. KKG pops it up and over the stick of Sophia Holm, who comes back to collect. So they have moved Holm. During that timeout, they moved Holm back to defense. She had been forward on this line, and they moved Jeffries up to forward, and Yanda has to make a diving stop and check that. They've moved Sharon Lobley up to this line. So this is kind of a super line here for Canada, where they've got Holm, Lobley, Pomeroy, and Van Tielen, along with Blomqvist, all out there at the same time, really trying to increase their offensive output.
On that last chance in front of the U.S. net, Tiffany Gerber came from nowhere to break up a pass that was to an otherwise wide open Canadian player in front of the net.
And they're going to get KKG again, I think, for clearing out with the free arm.
Yeah. To your point, though, we talked about it a lot off mic yesterday about how the advanced age, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but the advanced age of the U.S. team could play as a negative. But it seems like, at least with 9 minutes left to go in this game, that Marie Hagstrom especially, but I mean just about everybody on the U.S. team seems to have a lot more juice today than they did yesterday overall.
And there was a different tone in pregame warm-ups for sure. Lovett went back to slap a backhand shot on net, and it was, in the time her stick was high, Borghese deflected the ball, and then Lovett's stick as a result came right down on Borghese's stick, an easy call for the official.
Got a little my bad wave after that from Catherine Lovett.
Borghese reverses on to Jeffries. Jeffries has moved up to forward now. And a ball just put in deep by Martha Burkett, who has given the U.S. some energy over the last couple of periods as well.
And on top, goodness. On top of that energy, she's also given some of the other players a little bit of a break. You know, we've seen the rotation on this second line of a couple different people in and out. And, you know, every minute that your star players don't have to play is time for them to recover on the bench.
Point shot blocked down by Burkett and Lovett. Jeffries looking into the near corner. Here's Jess Crossweight, who's had a very good period for herself. Nicole Crossweight takes it at the point. She's hounded by Burkett. Burkett digging in there. She'll be called on this. It'll be a Canadian advantage, and it'll be a Canada free hit. The Americans will change. They'll get their first line back out. No, it'll be an American free hit. My apologies.
We had differentiating calls between the two refs. The guy on the far end said that he saw a stick lift, but our ref that was closer to the play saw an elbow at the end.
So the first line out there for the United States with possession. A nice little play through by Esther Angerstig trying to get it up to Lindquist. It comes back to Hagstrom. Angerstig pinches up. Hagstrom drops back defensively. Here's Kirkgetta. And Angerstig just misses that shot. That did not miss by much, and that could have well been the dagger with 7:30 remaining in the third period. She threw her head skyward and now comes back on defense in that W formation for the first line.
Every second that the U.S. team can spend on the Canadian side with the ball is worth its weight in gold at this point. The clock is 100% on the U.S. side currently. They just need to keep the ball on the other end of the floor and not give up any soft goals.
Ball tapped forward from Hagstrom to Lindquist. Now KKG shot into the back of Emily Blomquist, and Blomquist comes back again so good on the ball, makes a nice little turn and gets it back to home.
You got to think we're getting pretty close to Canada pulling their goalie down by 3. We'll keep an eye and see what's going on down there.
I've been watching, and Hudson hasn't really been looking over at the bench just yet, so maybe they're waiting for about the 5-minute mark or something along that line. Niskanen to Borghese, watched over by Lovett. Here's Bebout closing in on Nicole Crossweight. Bebout deflects her attempted pass, but it bounces right to Niskanen. Niskanen along the end boards, knocked out in front. Bebout is going to clear it up to Lovett, but it's stolen away by the long stick of Jeffries. Bebout snakes her stick back in there to grab it. It eventually comes back to Darlow, and on now to Jen Kohler. Jess Crossweight gets there before Darlow can to get the ball up the boards, but it's turned right back to Canada.
Big block.
It's just one ball back and forth, and that's probably a good clear by Caitlin Bebout to say, you know what, let's just hit the reset button on this Super Nintendo. Absolutely
Brilliant move by Bebout to send the ball down low.
Hagstrom lifts the ball from Jeffries on the rush. KKG a shot and a great save. Nice lateral movement from Ida Hudson to get there with the mask. A laser from KKG. Ida Hudson said no. Van Thielen. Now to Blomquist. So we've got this situation where this amped up first line for Canada, they move home back to defense, is playing against the first line for the Americans. Blomquist drops
Canada
the hole.
is yelling at Ida to get out. And there she goes.
And that ball into the corner, 6-on-5 now with 5:14 remaining in the third period. The extra attacker is Jess Crossweight, and a huge play by Marie Hagstrom tips it forward to KKG. She stops, spins, puts it deeper for Tiff Gerber.
Ida Hudson back in net now.
And that was a very smart play by Clara Kerkgeta to go back to her D. So many younger players would have attempted to shoot that at the empty net. She didn't have the angle. She went back to Gerber, and they killed another 20 seconds. But this ball out to the Canadians, and now the Canadians will try and change on the ball, a kind of a late change here, so this will kill even more time. The Americans bring out their second line.
And out goes Ida Hudson again.
And it's interesting that Hudson didn't scramble off the second they brought the ball back defensively for Canada.
Canada still only has 5 players on the floor.
Yeah, there's no extra attacker right now for Canada.
She
Finally, she comes out, so some miscommunication there. Here is Jeffries. Watched over by Lovett. Borghese collapsed in upon by Burkett. A nice stick from Kohler, who's able to dig the ball free and clear it down the boards about 3/4 of the court.
Good clear. Good clear.
Jeffries, as Canada exchanges goalie in and goalie out once again. It seems like there's a little bit of indecision over at the bench, and neither goalie nor extra attacker really know when they're supposed to come or go.
Yeah, they definitely have had some issues deciding when to come out, and then on top of that, who's going in.
Lobley's long shot knocked away by Yarda. Working along the far boards, Niskanen, and she manages to get the free hit, and now Canada will call a timeout. So the timeout earlier, although we thought it was a Canadian timeout, it was really a review timeout. And with 3:37 left in the third period, Canada will take their timeout. This will give both teams an opportunity to rest their first line, and I would wager that we're maybe only going to see the Canadian first line come off once more for the rest of this game.
Well, if you remember in the first game when they were chasing in the third, they kept that first line out there for 4 or 5 minutes. They did not sub but maybe one player at a time while they were on the attack when they were trying to even up the score late in the third.
So again, the winner of this game goes to Czechia for the Women's World Floorball Championships later this year. And Mark, while we have the opportunity during this timeout, I just want to thank the Austin Floorball Club. You know, Austin has a dynamic floorball community here. There's so many players here. They were the ones that helped lay the floor. They were the ones that helped get the boards out here. They were the ones that help administrate this event. They're the ones that help out on color commentary or camera work when we need be. But Mark, I know you're a major part of the club, and from USA Floorball to Austin Floorball Club, we want to thank you for all the work that your folks have done this week.
Well, I will say I am just a lucky person to be involved in a really great floorball club, and we appreciate that. USA Floorball has been great for us, and this event has just been so fun to attend, to be a part of.
Hagstrom works the ball free after the Canadian free hit. So 6 on 5 for the Canadians, trailing by 3. They need to tie and send the game to overtime or take the lead in order to extend their hopes in this international cycle. Van Thielen looks inside. That ball knocked away by Lindquist. Hagstrom goes down awkwardly, and it'll be a free hit as Lobley got her stick in between the leg of Hagstrom. And I think Hagstrom, it was tough to tell from here, but that had the look of her stepping on a stick, I think.
Yeah, I think she kind of got just kind of can opened in the middle where the stick was against her foot and her other foot kind of caught the stick and she went down. But stick between the legs is against the rules in floorball. So
second line out there for the Americans.
A pretty aggressive wave off of the goalie there.
This ball down the far boards. Here's Van Thielen. Van Thielen, her pass attempted for the playmaker Pomeroy, goes all the way to Holm on the near side. Holm watched over by Kohler. Now it comes low. Jenny Darlow being counted upon for some big minutes here in a defensive position. And that shot blocked by Tadskanen. A rapid release by Lobley. Holm sweeping it across. That's knocked down by Campbell. Campbell wants the empty net. She's going after it, but she'll be beaten in the foot race by Emily Blomqvist, and then runs into Van Thielen. Holds her arm up, but she's got to get back defensively as she's talking to the referee. Now Canada, an opportunity to set up. Here is Lobley. Van Thielen, and Kohler might have just gotten a piece of that. It was intended for Holm. Jeffries, back to Holm. Holm sweeping towards the middle of the floor. Exchanges with Blomqvist. Now underneath, and they score on a one-timer from Pomeroy. Sophie Pomeroy, her second of this series, on a nice assist from Blomqvist on the near side, and Canada is back within 2.
And we've talked about it a lot today. the movement of the ball as it goes back and forth, especially when you're 6-on-5 like that, and you have the ability to maintain possession all the way around the floor, you get the goalie moving enough, and eventually you find that open player who's just standing in front of an open net. And you just had zero chance on that because it was a well-placed shot with a little bit of patience and a little bit of thought into where to put it.
So Pomeroy getting a big goal for the Canadians. And now the first line for the U.S. back out there. Gerber chasing it down in the far corner. The shot from distance from Angerstig for the Americans. And the longer they hold it down here, the better it is for the United States' opportunity to hold on to this victory. 90 seconds remaining, another shot from Angerstig, but it tips off a Canadian stick. And this is a major opportunity for the U.S. This is the first time in a while they've had any standard possession.
Yep. And like I said earlier, every second you spend down here is precious. Canada needs to get the ball back quickly.
Hagstrom behind the net, KKG looking. She'll just hold. Here's the shot from Susie Lindquist, and that was just high and wide. This first line not content to just sit on the ball and run clock.
All right, empty net again now, so it's still going to be 6-on-5 for Canada.
Pomeroy, the latest goal scorer for the Canadians. Down along the end boards. Watched over by Esther Angerstig. Comes back to the point. Blomqvist shot through a screen, and it's out.
Pretty lucky for the U.S. that wasn't on net. It looked like there was some space on the side of the net closest to us that could have snuck into.
And a lot of bodies between that shot and Yarda. Now here's a turnover in a rough position, but Lobley lifts the shot high and wide.
Got to keep your composure here if you're Team USA. Really got to make smart passes, and if it's not there, nothing wrong with dumping the ball down the floor. You got to burn that clock.
And
just
that's
like
exactly what Tiff Gerber will do. A little bit of a mess along the far side. Canada could not decide whether or not they were bringing the extra attacker in or out, and I think they're going to get 6 players. I think they're going to get a call for 6 field players while the goalie was still out. And again, the Canadian exchanges just have not been crisp at all on the bench with the extra attacker.
That was a mess. They had 3 or 4 people on top of the boards when the ball rolled through. So yeah, we're going to see a too many men on the floor penalty here, which is going to make it a little bit tougher for Team Canada.
And it'll be served by, I think that's Dana Isaacs over there, but it's tough to see from here. The Canadian numbers on the front of their jerseys aren't super clear. It's difficult to see from this angle, but the point remains that the United States will get a power play. And ultimately for the U.S., the goal is not to score on this power play as much as it is to kill off the next 50 seconds of game time if you can. I know the Canadians are just keeping the goalie out.
I mean, at this point, you got nothing to lose.
Which is probably what they should have done to begin with before the too many men penalty. Hagstrom is double teamed. She wins a free hit. 42 seconds left. Elsa Tanskanen out there for the U.S. She continues to hold the ball, and this ball is just popped out off a stick by Jeffries. So it's a Canadian free hit. No, now they'll call it back to the Americans. Tanskanen will play it back to Gerber. 30 seconds. And for the Americans, they seek revenge after losing 3 games in Fredericton and missing out on an opportunity to go to the World Games. For the Canadians, they're hoping against hope for a miracle here, down by 2 and on the penalty kill.
At this point, all you want to do is get the ball on the boards and hold it there. Keep it on the backside, move it around.
Plays it to Hagstrom. Hagstrom spinning against Holm. Hagstrom's going to try and rag out the rest of this clock. She'll get it back to Gerber. Gerber is going to take all the time before getting it to Lindquist. And the United States, Mark, they are going to Czechia. They win it 7-5 in a decisive third game. What a series we have seen here. Even this game back and forth the entire time. The Americans with a third period that was so desperately needed from their leadership to punch their ticket to the Women's World Floorball Championships.
Considering the United States was down 2-0 for quite a while in this game, the fact that they rallied back and won 7-5 is remarkable in and of itself. But the way they did it, as we talked earlier about the difference in age and the expectation that we might have some tired legs, I would say they put all doubts about that to bed.
It's a tough loss for Team Canada, who battled, and as you mentioned, and as we mentioned, it's a young squad. They will come back even stronger next cycle, no doubt. But for this is triumphant for the Americans. And what's more is, there's a story surrounding the Fredericton series. The United States lost 3 straight games in Fredericton. They were down at one point to 6 healthy players, but they were basically forced to play that series because if they pulled out of it, they would be fined and suspended. Those players did what they could to band together, a lot of them on this roster here today, and for those players in particular, it is going to be a massive moral victory, as well as just the happiness of at least exacting some measure of revenge for losing those 3 games in Canada.
I'm sure it feels great to all those players that went to Fredericton and did all they could, but just didn't have enough to take the games, to be on a team with their teammates at the top level and just hang on and win like they did.
And a player like Jenny Darlow, who saw some playing time in today's game. In the last game in Fredericton, I had her playing 52 minutes of the 60 out there. And so a player like her, that's going to be a big deal. Sharon Lobley wins player of the game for Canada. And she had an excellent series overall. A couple of goals in this game, 2 goals coming into today. So she ends with 4 goals in the 3 games. Player of the match for the USA is Marie Hagstrom.
Pretty easy choice there. Yeah. She was everywhere and all over the scoreboard.
And I like being a contrarian sometimes when it comes to the player of the game, but you really can't argue with that. Her defensive play was on point, and she helped to account for 5 of the 7 American goals, either scoring them, she scored 3, or assisting on them, she assisted on 2.
I mean, we hit on it several times late, but she was just all over the floor. She was playing strong defense, broke up a couple of big passes, and then on top of that, her 5 points.
And so now everyone acknowledges Alberto Caduto from Italy and David Rampoldi from Switzerland, and they were actually speaking Italian during this situation because David lives in the Italian part of Switzerland here. They give MVP of the tournament to Riley Borghese, the Canadian captain. And she really helped to settle things down defensively for the Canadians. And as a younger player, getting a chance to captain this squad, she's not the oldest player or most experienced player on the squad, but you can certainly say she did a bang-up job on that regard. Claire Kirk-Guerra wins MVP of the tournament for the United States, and certainly got them this far. Was a major driver of the first game of the tournament for the U.S., managed a big goal in this one here, ended up with 4 goals for the tournament. So she and Marie Hagstrom leading the U.S. in scoring. But ultimately, when we look at this effort from both teams, both from Canada and the United States, you have a couple of standout players for each team, but there were a lot of players that helped to chip in. Emily Niskanen got the first goal of the game here today for Canada. She started this best-of-3 series on the 3rd line for the Canadians, was pushed up due to injury, and she really came into her own during the course of the tournament. And then you have someone like for the U.S., we talked about her already in this game, but you have someone like Catherine Lovett, gets a major goal here. If she doesn't score that goal when she scores it, this game could have turned out completely differently because that was a momentum changer for the United States.
We've been talking about how much the U.S. team needed a spark before she scored. And to your point, as soon as that goal scored, it felt like the floor tilted back towards the Canadian side, and the U.S. pressure just kept on ramping up, and it continued through the rest of the game. And yeah, that goal was, I think, if you're looking for a specific turning point in this game, that's the easy choice.
So the captains each addressing the opposite team. And applause from everyone. And so I think this becomes proof of concept as well for Michelle Grandchamp and Frederic Bernabeu, the co-coaches for the United States. You know, going 0 for 3 in Fredericton, but the word from all of the American players, they liked how encouraging they were. They liked how optimistic the coaches were. They came here and they said, you know, hey, it's a different style than Fredericton because we've got different players and we want to get down to the brass tacks. We want to get down to business a little bit more. And I think it's proof of concept for them as well to be able to take 2 of these 3 games. And for the Canadians, like I said, you flip a coin, you play this 3-game series 100 times, you probably get 50 and 50. It seemed like that even of a series, but for the Americans to ramp up play, not only you add a couple of experienced players, but a lot of these same players coming back from Fredericton with the experience playing major roles in this team.
Well, you know, you just think about what the total aggregate score of this was, and between 3 games, it was 4 total goals.
Yep.
You don't get that very often in a qualifier. Usually what you see is 20-0, 20-0, and then, you know, 5-0 because you're playing your backups. But you just really have to be impressed with the effort from both of these teams, and the quality of floorball this weekend was through the roof. Great passes, great shots, great saves, great defense. If what you were hoping for was a good game, you got exactly what you wanted.
And you don't want to belabor the point as well, Mark, but one of the things that you and I heard so much over the last few days is you've got a new fan. You've won a new fan. The people that came here that had not seen international floorball before were just so impressed with what they saw, the intensity of the action, just the fervor with which the players took the floor, the effort that they gave, and so on and so forth. I think that was the big win. I know it's cliche to say, well, floorball was the big winner this weekend, but I think, Mark, you could make a fair assessment that that was the case.
Well, and we were talking yesterday about a number of fans that showed up. This was, even like you said today, on a Monday morning, we had a pretty good turnout of people here to watch some floorball. That's pretty great. You know, it's hard not to be excited about the future of floorball when you've got people who are willing to roll in on a Monday morning and come watch a floorball game. And, you know, they got treated to a pretty good game, too, which definitely helps.
Absolutely. I think all 3 games were excellent games, and we've talked about it before. You just mentioned it in the qualifiers. Usually you get blowouts one way or the other. Not a single blowout to be had. Every game was in question until the final whistle this weekend, and once again, that's all you can ask for. So, again, just appreciation to the Austin Floorball Club and USA Floorball for helping to host. Thank you for everyone from the IFF for enabling this to happen and engendering this entire process. For Dylan on camera and Mark Raup on color, I'm Trent Kling saying so long. You've been watching the Women's 2025 World Floorball Championship qualifications from Austin, Texas. Thanks for watching.